Good afternoon, everyone. It's Louise from Eleanor Grace. So we're on week 2 of the stitch along. I think we probably will finish next week, but I will go into a 4th week with a little extra. And the extra will be something that if you want to take part in, ideally if you can get some brown, some sort of dark, medium to dark brown, and some white or off-white felt we will do an extra little thing on the 4th week. So this is week 2 and I have made a little bit of progress, as you can see. So with this one here I have done a single fly stitch all coming all the way round, and I'm just going to finish that one off. So I have got a video on fly stitch, and do have a look at that if you're not too confident with fly stitch. But I'm going to finish off the last one here, and it's a very simple stitch. It's very similar. I call it the cousin of the feather stitch, which is my most favourite stitch, which I will show you in a minute. And this is just to come up out of the first hole, go down into a second hole sort of next to it. You want to make a U or a V shape like this. So you go down here, and then we want to catch this thread. Okay, so we want to go down and then come back up to catch the thread, and just think about the V shape. So you're making the point of the bottom of the V here by catching that. And then you have a perfect fly stitch, and usually this is done in a sort of joined row, but you can do isolated fly stitches as well. So that's finished that bit off. As you can see from where I was last week, I had done the little sort of zigzag edging here. I then interspersed that with some fly stitches again. They do look a bit different depending on how you do them, but this is exactly the same technique around the edge. And then I felt like I wanted to come out a bit and sort of be a bit more dramatic. What I think I'm going to do is intersperse here some French knots, either in the middle or within the U of the fly stitch, in this metallic gold. I just wanted to show you this. It's I don't know how old this is. It's something I bought at the vintage fair, but I don't think it's necessarily a vintage thread. I think it's probably a lot more modern than that. So this is a DMC. So it's a metallic. I think it's just called Perle Metallic, or Metallic Pearl 5. So it's a 6-stranded, a bit like an embroidery floss. And I found I've taken 2 strands out to make the parts that I'm using this for. So here I've done a little 2-stranded running stitch around that centre of French knots. So as I say, I'm going to use this to make some French knots in between these little fly stitches. So it's either going to be actually in between the stitches or just within the cup of the fly stitch, and then I might do a little radiating stitch out here. Either it might be a little running stitch, or I might do a little row of French knots. Haven't quite decided yet, so I'll come back next week with that. And next week we will finish them off, so I'll show you how to do that even if we're not completely finished with all of them. I'll move on to the next one that I'm working on. So this last week I'd only got to sort of doing this ring of chain stitches, so I've done a little ring of running stitch inside, and I feel now I want to sort of radiate in between these stitches. I'm feeling that it's calling for something, possibly something long going into the center. So that could be all sorts of things, really. I could again do a load of French knots going into the center, or yeah, I'll have a little think about that one. This one is slightly stumping me at the moment, but what I've done on the outside is the feather stitch, and like the fly stitch, as I was mentioning, it's the cousin of the fly stitch. It's my favourite stitch to use, absolutely love it. And this was inspired by one of our team who in the group that I run on Facebook, who did the most beautiful set of feather stitches. So Rebecca, this was your idea, to do some lovely feather stitches around the edge. So I thought I'm gonna take that idea and run with it, and I think it looks really effective with the white on the red. I've interspersed then with little French knots, which is very much my sort of style. As if you've seen any of my or if you bought any of my workshops, or you've seen any of my other work, it's one of my favorite combinations. So I'm just going to finish that off, but again, there is a video on how to do feather stitch. So I really I'd say this is probably the one stitch I would say to anyone to add to your repertoire, because it is so beautiful, and it can be used in so many ways. Usually I use it for sort of flower stalks, or making it look like reeds. Yeah, it's lovely, and it's a very simple stitch, very much like the fly stitch. You're coming up in one place. Instead of being on a level, you want to be either up or down, a bit like nature. Nature is not perfect, it's perfectly imperfect. So you don't go so formal as you do with a fly stitch. With a feather stitch, I would put my next stitch slightly up or slightly down. In this case, it's much easier to do it down. And again, like the fly stitch, we are catching that thread. So we're going to come up again to again make this sort of U or V shape. It's a slightly softer one. It's more of a U than the fly stitch, which is usually more of a V sort of shape. And you pull through, and there we are. And if you were to finish the alpha, you would just go down in there now. But I'm going to carry on and just come around the edge here and join it up with the start. So let's just finish that bit off. And yes, as I said, I'm interspersing this with French knots, which is, you know, is my idea of heaven, and they look almost like little flowers or little clusters of buds. So that looks really lovely. And I'm going to go up in here, and I might not join this up absolutely perfectly, but I'm going to attempt to sort of make it more or less join up with a little stitch over there, and then you've got a little circle there. In fact, I almost feel like I might do one stitch more there, but I'll have a think about that. I'm just going to sign off on that one for now, and then finish off the French knots. So I won't do that in front of you because we did some French knots last week, but again, there's a little video separately if you want to look at how to do the French knots. And what I did very naughtily was kept these threads at the back, so they've got a little bit tangled up. So I'm just going to do a few French knots here just to intersperse with that, and I may finish off with another single sort of feather stitch down here just to sort of tie these all up together. So I'll have a little think about that one. What I've got to think about is the radiating into the centre now. What am I going to do into the centre? Again, there's all sorts of stitches that can be used for this. You know, we've done a simple running stitch here, so I don't feel particularly that a short running stitch would be good. I might do a longer stitch, or I might do a stitch coming out from the centre with a long tail, like a fly stitch, but with a very extended tail. That might work quite nicely. And then do something sort of more delicate in the centre. Okay, so that's that one. Then this one is very sort of centered in the middle. It's a slightly more delicate felt as well than the other two, so I'm a little bit more careful with this one. Since I finished up last week, I had done a little running stitch around the edge, and then I did a little herringbone stitch. Now I got overexcited and finished this in rather than showing you how to do it if you haven't done herringbone stitch before. Again, there is a video on it, but it's a lovely stitch. When you think about doing it, it's a bit like doing a cross stitch, but it's almost elongating the crossover of the two stitches. I always make it look when I'm doing it, make it, I think about it as a almost like a wigwam or a teepee. So you're going to have a long wide stitch, and then at the top you're going to have a very short little stitch from the back over to the next one. So I'm sorry I didn't get to show you that one properly, but do have a look at the herringbone stitch tutorial on here briefly if you'd like to give that a go. And I just went round, I was going to try and make it a bit more expansive, but it sort of contracted in a bit, so now I'm feeling a bit like the opposite of the red one. I'm feeling like I need to expand this out quite dramatically, so I want to do something coming out from between these spokes. And again, it might be you know, it might be a series of French knots coming out. It might be something with a long tail. I'm going to have a little bit of a think of that one, but I will come back next week, and I'll try and do another video sort of which I'll put out in the week if I can, with a little update to show you how I'm getting on. But yeah, do share what you're doing with me on the group, or comments on here as to if you've made a start, or if you've got your fabrics together, if you've got an idea what you want. And as I say, we're going to do another week next week, and we'll probably go into the 4th week because I will have another little extra. So see if you can get yourself some dark sort of brown, mid to dark brown, and a white or a cream bit of felt for another little project on the same sort of idea. I won't go any further than that. Particularly those in the UK might know what I'm going to be aiming for. It's going to be the same shape, and again we want to cut out some shapes. You may want to go a little bit smaller than this. You may want to go you know, just a little bit smaller, or you might want to make them as big as this. We will see. But I'm just going to get my measuring tape, and this one was about 7.5 centimeters, which is just about 3 inches. So you might want to go maybe a little bit smaller, but not too much. So I will see you again next week, and as I say, I'll try and put in an update one in the week. Thanks very much. Bye.